protests against billionaire Tesla founder Elon Musk over his role in those massive federal job cuts. More demonstrations expected today at Tesla facilities across the country.
Tesla, the electric vehicle maker owned by Elon Musk, is warning the U.S. government that American exporters could be harmed by countries retaliating against tariffs imposed by Donald Trump.
Tesla's production lines have entered a state of emergency as China threatens to implement a comprehensive ban on electric vehicles entering their market. This decision could potentially cut off the world's largest EV market from American manufacturers overnight. In this analysis, we will examine how Tesla's reliance on Chinese consumers has created a precarious situation for Elon Musk's company, with billions in revenue now hanging in the balance as geopolitical tensions escalate. The implications extend far beyond Tesla, threatening to reshape the entire American automotive industry. China's strategic pivot toward protecting its domestic electric vehicle industry has been unfolding methodically over the past 2 years. What began as subtle regulatory adjustments has evolved into a comprehensive framework designed to favor local manufacturers while creating increasingly difficult conditions for foreign competitors. The Chinese government has implemented a series of calculated policies that signal a fundamental shift in how the world's largest automotive market approaches foreign participation in its EV sector. The pattern of restrictive measures targeting companies like Tesla reveals a deliberate strategy rather than isolated incidents. Chinese authorities have systematically increased regulatory burdens specifically on non-Chinese manufacturers, including enhanced data security requirements that disproportionately impact foreign companies' operating models. These requirements force foreign manufacturers to either surrender valuable intellectual property or face operational obstacles that domestic companies can more easily navigate. Perhaps most concerning for foreign manufacturers are the classified internal government documents that outline plans for a potential comprehensive ban on American-made electric vehicles. These documents, recently obtained by intelligence sources, detail a phased approach to reducing foreign EV market share in China, with the ultimate goal of completely blocking Tesla and other American manufacturers from accessing Chinese consumers. Such a ban would represent an unprecedented escalation in automotive trade relations. The timing of these potential restrictions is particularly significant as they coincide with Tesla's announced plans to substantially expand operations at its Shanghai factory. This expansion, representing billions in investment, now faces uncertain prospects as Chinese authorities signal their preference for domestically owned manufacturers. The contradiction between welcoming foreign investment while simultaneously creating conditions that undermine that investment's viability demonstrates the complex nature of China's industrial strategy. Chinese domestic EV production has reached remarkable levels, with projections indicating continued growth of 22% in 2024, pushing total sales to 11 million vehicles. This explosive growth has created significant manufacturing overcapacity within China, placing pressure on domestic producers to maintain profitability. The government's protective measures can be viewed as a direct response to this overcapacity crisis, prioritizing the survival of Chinese manufacturers over market access for foreign competitors. Security concerns have become a convenient justification for restricting foreign EVs. Beijing officials have already banned Tesla vehicles from military installations and government facilities, citing data collection capabilities that could potentially compromise national security. This security-based approach provides Chinese authorities with a politically defensible rationale for increasingly restrictive policies that might otherwise appear as straightforward protectionism. The nationalistic rhetoric in Chinese state media has intensified noticeably, with increasing emphasis on technological self-sufficiency in strategic sectors. Official publications now regularly frame electric vehicle technology as a matter of national pride and technological sovereignty, preparing the domestic audience for potential further restrictions on foreign manufacturers. This media narrative aligns perfectly with policy actions that prioritize domestic producers. Recent trade negotiations between China and various partners have conspicuously excluded electric vehicles from protection agreements. While other sectors receive guarantees against discriminatory treatment, the EV industry remains exposed to potential restrictive measures. This calculated omission from trade protections signals China's intention to treat this sector differently, preserving policy flexibility to implement domestic favoring regulations. The integration of these policies reveals a sophisticated dual strategy: protect domestic manufacturers while simultaneously developing export capabilities that directly compete with American producers. Chinese EV manufacturers are receiving substantial government support to develop vehicles specifically designed for Western markets, even as those same Western manufacturers face increasing obstacles within China. While China's policies externally threaten Tesla's market access, a far more dangerous vulnerability lies beneath the surface. Tesla's production lines could grind to a halt completely, not because of losing Chinese consumers, but because 75% of their critical battery materials pass through Chinese processing facilities. This dependency creates an existential risk that extends far beyond market concerns, potentially threatening the entire operational capacity of America's leading electric vehicle manufacturer. The vulnerability begins with Tesla's global manufacturing system, which depends heavily on Chinese suppliers for battery components. These aren't merely supplementary parts, but essential elements without which production becomes impossible. The integration of these components is so deeply embedded in Tesla's manufacturing process that any disruption in their supply would have immediate and severe consequences for production capabilities worldwide. Particularly concerning is Tesla's reliance on Chinese processing of rare earth minerals, which are fundamental to electric vehicle motors. China processes nearly 90% of the world's rare earths, creating a near monopoly that could easily become leverage in any trade dispute. This concentration of critical resources in a single country represents a strategic vulnerability of the highest order for Tesla and, by extension, the American electric vehicle industry as a whole. The Nevada Gigafactory, Tesla's flagship manufacturing facility, operates with specialized equipment that is primarily manufactured in China. This equipment cannot be quickly sourced from alternative locations, creating another layer of dependency. If access to replacement parts or new machinery were suddenly restricted, Tesla could face significant operational challenges that would be difficult to overcome in the short term. What makes this situation particularly precarious is that Elon Musk previously explored options to diversify Tesla's supply chains, but ultimately abandoned these efforts due to cost considerations. This decision prioritized short-term financial gains over long-term strategic security, leaving Tesla in its current vulnerable position. The company now faces the consequences of these earlier choices as geopolitical tensions intensify. Adding to the complexity, American regulations that mandate domestic sourcing for electric vehicle tax credits directly conflict with Tesla's current supply chain realities. This policy contradiction forces Tesla into an impossible position. Either maintain its existing supply chains and potentially lose valuable tax incentives, or undertake a costly and time-consuming restructuring of its entire supply network. According to internal documents, replacing these supply chains would require between 18 and 36 months of development and billions of dollars in retooling costs. This is not a quick-fix scenario, but a fundamental restructuring that would challenge even Tesla's considerable resources and expertise. The transition period would leave the company vulnerable to production shortfalls and competitive disadvantages. The seriousness of this threat has not gone unnoticed within Tesla's leadership. Executives have reportedly convened emergency meetings specifically to address these supply chain vulnerabilities. These discussions reflect an urgent recognition that the company faces a potentially existential threat that could halt production entirely if left unaddressed. The implications extend far beyond Tesla itself. The same dependencies that threaten Tesla's operations also affect the broader American electric vehicle industry. This represents a national economic security concern as the United States risks losing technological leadership in a sector widely recognized as critical to future transportation and energy systems. For context, China's dominance in processing rare earth elements gives it extraordinary leverage. These materials are not merely important for electric vehicles, but are essential components in various advanced technologies. China's control over nearly 90% of this processing capacity represents a strategic advantage that could be wielded against American manufacturers with devastating effect. The rare earth processing monopoly represents just one piece of China's meticulously designed economic blueprint. While American manufacturers scramble to secure supply chains, Beijing has systematically positioned itself at every critical junction of the EV revolution through calculated investments exceeding $100 billion specifically targeted at export markets. This massive financial commitment isn't merely about developing domestic capabilities. It's a deliberate strategy to fundamentally reshape the global automotive landscape, creating a scenario where even Tesla's continued existence may ultimately depend on decisions made in Beijing rather than California. This substantial investment has enabled Chinese manufacturers to reach a critical milestone: cost parity with traditional internal combustion vehicles. The timing is not coincidental. As Western automakers struggle with the higher production costs of transitioning to electric platforms, Chinese companies have quietly achieved the economies of scale necessary to compete directly on price without sacrificing profit margins. This accomplishment delivers a tremendous competitive advantage precisely when global markets are accelerating their shift toward electrification. Even more concerning for American industry is how Chinese manufacturers have developed sophisticated strategies to circumvent trade barriers. Rather than exporting directly from China, these companies have begun establishing production facilities in countries with preferential trade access to the United States, particularly Mexico. This approach leverages the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, as a potential backdoor into the American market. U.S. officials have expressed growing alarm that Chinese automakers could effectively bypass tariffs, gaining unfettered access to American consumers while operating under more favorable cost structures. The financial implications for Tesla are particularly severe. Access to the Chinese market, the world's largest automotive market, is fundamental to Tesla's global strategy and valuation. Financial analysts have determined that permanent exclusion from this market would erase approximately $25 billion from Tesla's market capitalization. This figure represents not merely quarterly fluctuations, but a structural devaluation that would fundamentally alter the company's growth trajectory and competitive position. American policymakers find themselves in an extraordinarily difficult position. Standard retaliatory measures against Chinese imports would typically include tariffs or restrictions on Chinese-manufactured vehicles entering the U.S. market. However, such actions would provide little leverage given the integrated nature of global supply chains. American manufacturers themselves remain heavily dependent on Chinese components, creating a situation where retaliatory actions would inadvertently harm the very domestic producers they aim to protect. This dependency creates a strategic dilemma with no easy solutions. Protecting American manufacturers may require accepting painful short-term production disruptions while developing alternative supply chains, a process that could take years and billions in investment. Meanwhile, Chinese manufacturers continue expanding their global footprint and technological capabilities, potentially establishing an insurmountable lead in the industry's future. The economic ramifications extend far beyond a single company like Tesla. The American automotive sector represents one of the nation's largest manufacturing employers, with millions of jobs directly or indirectly tied to vehicle production. China's coordinated strategy threatens this entire economic ecosystem, from assembly line workers to engineers, suppliers, and dealership networks across the country. The potential disruption would ripple throughout the American economy, affecting communities that have relied on automotive manufacturing for generations. What makes this scenario particularly troubling is that it represents not merely a temporary trade dispute, but a fundamental restructuring of global automotive manufacturing capacity. The transition to electric vehicles was already reshaping the industry landscape. China's strategic approach threatens to accelerate this transformation in ways that permanently diminish American industrial capacity and technological leadership. While Chinese manufacturers rapidly scale production and innovation, American companies find themselves caught between maintaining access to critical components and defending against predatory competition. Hope you like this video. If you want to know more about how China just sold $200 billion in US debt, click on the next video.